Welcome to Chapter 4. In this chapter, we'll look at the planning that occurs before developing an advertising program and other marketing messages. This chapter essentially will focus on the IMC planning process. Pets have become an important part of many people's lives. For many individuals, they're part of the family. Attitudes as far as how pets are treated and how they're cared for has changed over time. New animal care products have arisen, and there's a new element of services that are being provided for pets. You can even get health insurance for your cat. I know because I've gotten in the past, if you will. The pet industry is $41 billion strong and is an example in our chapter here of how PetSmart has effectively utilized the IMC process. In this chapter, we'll look at how the three C's of the IMC planning will incorporate different forms of elements that will make an effective advertising program take place. We'll look at what categories are used to identify customers, target markets, and market segments. In addition, we'll look at the categories that identify B2B market segments. We'll examine various approaches to the science of positioning a particular product for a target market. We'll also look at how the marketing communication objectives interact with other elements of the IMC planning process. And we'll focus on relationships that exist between the communication process and the budgets that support these efforts, if you will, and also their relationship to sales. We'll look at what types of marketing communication budgets may be used when developing an IMC planning program. And finally, we'll look at advertising and what the IMC components are in terms of selecting the parts of the IMC planning process. Now, the IMC planning process involves a number of steps and decisions. Planning begins with research, decisions about target markets, market segmentation, positioning of your product. Once these factors have been investigated and decisions made, then communication objectives can be created. A budget is then set that is appropriate to support these objectives. The last part of the planning process is to think about the IMC components and how they'll work together to create a synergy. In the IMC planning process, essentially analysis is the beginning of the entire process, if you will, and particularly the context, which really involves the three C's: your customer, your competitors, and your communication. From the analysis of the three C's, decisions about the target market, the product positioning can essentially be made. It's a joint decision between one affecting the other and vice versa. Now communication objectives can be formulated after the research has been conducted. From the objectives comes the budget and the selection of the appropriate IMC components. Again, it's a mutual decision because the budget impacts which IMC components can be used, and the selection of these components also affect the budget. The customer analysis involves looking at 4 different types of customer groups, if you will. The most obvious one is the current customers. They'll be the easiest to study, but former customers are important, especially learning why they are former customers and why they switched to another brand. Potential customers is an important group to understand because they may be a primary group to target with an advertising or marketing campaign. The last group is the competitor's customers. Why do they purchase from the competitor, and what would it take to get them to switch? In designing your ads, all of these important components are utilized as far as how to target the appropriate demographic. This is an ad that targets individuals who may not have purchased this type of product before, such as the mud tires. The second phase of the company context analysis is examining the competitors. The process should start by identifying major competitors, a firm's most direct competitors. Then examine each competitor's communication strategy and tactics. What are they telling their customers? What are their customers saying about them? How is the communication taking place between the customer and the competitor, and what's the content? While the goal is not to copy what the competitor does, it is important to know what they are doing. Sources of information include primary sources, secondary sources, and what others say. Often, primary sources can be researched, if you will, by visiting the competitor's business or buying their product. Searching the library for information can also provide a wealth of data, if you will. And learning how to interpret and analyze this information becomes crucial. In our industry, we look at a report that comes out on a weekly basis. It's called the STAR report. Every hotel that is considered competitive looks at three main criteria. What is their occupancy like? What is their average daily rate? And what is their RevPAR goal? All hotels are measured on these three criteria, if you will. Occupancy, as you might well speculate, is how full is the hotel. We have one of our hotels here, Hyatt Place Atlanta Perimeter Center, with 150 rooms essentially. On Sunday, during the time this report came up, their occupancy was 37.3%, and then the percentages flows from there essentially. Now, these are the competitors that are within that market. You have some hotels at 145, 224, and with this report, we get their occupancy as well. And based on our comp set's occupancy and our occupancy, we come up with a market index. Essentially, what that indicates to us is if we have gotten our fair share of the market, meaning we've pulled from the available customer base, and if we have also possibly exceeded the competitors, if you will. If you're looking at Sunday, where we have a 37.3% occupancy, our comp set had a 36% occupancy, we took 36% of the inventory out there and increased it by 3 basis points. Hence, we were 37.3%. It's really a division of those two numbers is what produces the market index. And we look at that from a weekly basis, if you will. So we were behind in the market in the sense that we only ran an index of 91.4. Our competitive set ran an occupancy of 69.4, if you will. We only ran at 63.3. This is the type of information, at least in my world, that we pay attention to as far as what the comp set is doing. That also follows for their average daily rate, what they're charging, if you will. And RevPAR is a product of your occupancy and your ADR, basically the two multiplied. It's a metric that reveals to ownership how we are best generating revenue per available room we have, if you will. Hence, revenue par, RevPAR, if you will. From an online standpoint, I conduct a backlink analysis of the different websites that are available in the comp set. I look at how many links are pointing to theirs, what can we secure from them, and this is the type of research that happens in our industry, if you will. Now, the third component of the analysis is examining communication. It's important to know what the company is communicating to their customers, their channel members, their employees, and other stakeholders about the brand. The further the focus is placed upon the communication, the better off the organization is in achieving its goals, if you will. All of the information provides guidance to marketers in developing an integrated marketing campaign. Once the context is analyzed and that part is complete, the marketing group can focus on the target market or markets, if you will. They may target segments that no one is reaching or communicating to. There may be target markets that are being served by competitors, but not very well. Other target markets may be saturated with a varying number of opinions or number of competitors. Part of the decision on the target market is the segmentation approach that will be used and the product positioning strategy. While there may be flexibility with some target markets, others will require a specific positioning strategy because of the competitors. The advertisement that we see here targets individuals who want a bank that they can trust. In our business, we look at three different segments. There's a transient segment, that's anybody who would stay at one of our hotels that isn't affiliated with a business necessarily, meaning say we don't have a contract with IBM for them to send their employees to our hotel on a regular basis, and maybe they're just a guest at the Mayo Clinic. This would be considered transient. Then there's the group segment, which is a group of individuals typically associated with an organization or a team that stays at our hotel because they're having a meeting there or there's a meeting in the city somewhere. Then there's contract, which is comparable to airline crews who stay at our hotels because they travel on a regular basis. This is the segmentation that we experience in the hospitality industry and our strategies that we deploy accordingly across each customer base. Now, to select a viable market segment, it must meet four criteria essentially. First, the individuals or businesses within that segment should be homogeneous, meaning they should be alike, because if you're going to exert the effort and resources to target them, you want them to have similarities, if you will, so that your message is effectively received across the board. Second, the market segment must differ from the general population and also differ from other market segments. There must be something unique about this group of individuals that will be relevant to your message that separates them from other market segments and the general population. Third, the market segment has to be large enough to be financially viable to support a separate campaign, if you will. While some market segments meet the first two criteria, they might be too small, if you will. The last criteria of the market segment must be reachable through some type of media or marketing communication method. There are some market segments in Africa and other parts of the world that meet the first three criteria, but not the fourth, if you will. There is no feasible way to reach them with the marketing message, hence the segmentation process that we're looking at here. Now, customers can be segmented or really divided by a number of dimensions, if you will. The most common is demographic because it's the easiest. Other methods used include physiographic, generational, geographic, and also take into consideration their geodemographics, if you will, the benefits and also the usage. When I look at my online analytics with Google Analytics, because you have more likely an Android phone, and with that you've given Google your information and you've signed in and are browsing using your Android phone or you're using Chrome, I have information about you in particular. So for our website in Courtyard Decatur, which we've seen in the past, I know, generally speaking, that a majority of the people visiting the site within this time frame are between the ages of 25 and really 55. That's where we see the large group of ages, if you will. In addition, a lot of them are female versus male. And of this segmentation, most of them really enjoy news, and that's to be expected because chances are that they're business individuals. They love TV. They're interested in real estate as well. So we learn about our consumers based on the information that's present there. Gender is a common demographic segmentation, as we saw earlier, because the variables are significant as far as differences in the decision-making process of a male versus a female. When my wife shops, she goes to Amazon, looks at the reviews, and does perhaps a bit more research than I do. I pretty much check Amazon, maybe Best Buy, and I make my decision quickly and I would think efficiently. However, she does a bit more research. She reads more reviews than I do. Men and women purchase different products and have different processes, if you will. They also use some similar products, so it's important to understand the roles that they play when consumers, both of them, purchase this product, particularly in a household. The way marketers communicate to genders vary, as we talked about. For instance, females now control about $12 trillion in spending, or really 66%. They're involved in the product purchases that in the past were dominated by males. For example, 90% of women are involved in purchasing high-priced electronics. 90% deal with financial advisors. 80% buy and sell stocks. 70% are their household's primary accountant, if you will. My wife runs the books for our family simply because that's the arrangement that we have. I earn the money, she manages the money for us. In marketing to women, a few tips should be observed. The focus should be on how the brand can improve their life, if you will, not necessarily what it can do. It's important to engage these individuals, that is females, with the brand and make them feel a part of the brand. The focus is on the particular, not the trivial. Women want to know the facts and how it can benefit them. And the unique features to impress them, essentially. You need to tell a story that resonates with women in ways that are relevant to them, if you will. You need to provide detail. It may seem unimportant, but women want to know all of the information so they can make a good decision. Be positive and don't articulate any negative storytelling, if you will. This ad articulates the different uh, types of women that are out in the different cultures, if you will. So marketing to females can vary depending on the culture. We have to take that into consideration. Through in-depth interviews and focus groups, BMW Motorcycles learned that a great deal exists between women and men regarding when it came to motorcycles. Shocker there, if you will. Men were seen as the primary purchasers. They finalized the deal, often appeared to make the final decision, but women are a very important influence on the decision. If the female did not like a particular brand, it was not likely to be purchased. Women were more concerned about comfort, feel, and look, while men were more concerned about the mechanical aspects of a motorcycle. Uh, Shocker there as well. Took a focus group to determine that. Age is another demographic variable that is easy to use for segmentation. Obviously, there's a huge difference in products for children versus products for adults. Differences are also presented between some 20-year-olds and some 70-year-olds. Few marketing messages resonate with all ages, therefore focus on a specific age, and an age segmentation often works well when combined with another demographic variable such as males between the age of 20 to 35, females between the ages of 18 to 40. One age group has maybe the ability to be more approachable than others, if you will, and it's something to consider. Other demographic segmentation variables include education, income, and ethnic group. Each can be used alone or combined with other demographic variables to create smaller, more homogeneous segments. This ad looks at the affluence that might be present within a demographic group, if you will, articulating leather and the finer things of these products. Demographics are relatively easy to identify, but they do not fully explain customer purchase behavior. Physiographics are an individual's activities, interests, and opinions. They help marketers understand why customers buy what they buy. Physiographics are often combined with demographic profiles to provide a much richer description of a target market. A well-known measure of physiographics is the VALS2 typology. Customers are divided into 8 different segments on their AIO measures, such as activities, interests, and opinions. This type of information helps marketers design more effective communication. For instance, reaching achievers requires ads that stress career, families, goals, and conservative lifestyles, if you will. On the other hand, reaching experiencers requires ads to convey youthfulness, enthusiasm, impulsiveness, fashion, and social acceptance. Marketers can be segmented, or marketers can segment based on certain generations even. This table shows the 5 major generational group, and we can actually add another one above the millennials, if you will. Generation Y, I believe, is what they're called. And essentially, yeah, it articulates the varying preferences. I know the Marriott brand is targeting the millennials and making it more convenient for them to check in and check out using mobile technology, and really building their hotels to cater towards a community that supports people born between 1978 and 2002. Most of the time they have free Wi-Fi in the lobby. That's to support that community focus. Sometimes has been brought up in our generation. Myself, when I was in college, I used to spend a lot of time studying in coffee shops. It wasn't unusual for me to sit in a coffee shop with my headphones and just study, if you will. The same follows for my work habits now. I do work in the common areas within hotels. Now, according to generational segmentation, seniors have a fixed income and spend heavily on health products and related medical items. This ad articulates that and has been segmented, or they've been segmented for this particular offering. Geodemographic segmentation combines demographic information with geographic information and also physiographic information. Geodemographic segmentation is beneficial for national firms conducting direct mail campaigns for retailers and targeting customers in geographic areas and around particular stores, if you will. Prism is a great tool that consists of 62 different market segments for every zip code in the United States. Now, Prism identifies the market segments that the residents currently live in. For instance, in downtown Jackson, MS, the two primary clusters are South Side cities and towns and town groups, if you will. The Southside City cluster contains primarily young and elderly African Americans employed in low-paying blue-collar jobs with a lower level of education who rent apartments and read sports and fashion magazines. This type of information will be relevant for marketers who have products that relate to that particular target market. Benefits regarding segmentation focus on the advantages that the consumers receive from a product rather than the characteristics of the consumers themselves. An excellent example of benefit segmentation is the fitness industry. People exercise for different reasons. The three most common benefit segments are winners, dieters, and self-improvers. The winners exercise because they like to exercise. It's a way of life for them. The dieters join a fitness center to lose weight or maintain their weight, if you will. Self-improvers are there primarily because a physician told them that they need to be there. They have experienced a medical problem and realize that exercise is a regular part of their lifestyle, or needs to be, if you will. For myself, I work out because it helps clear my brain. When I don't work out, my thought processes don't become as clear. It's just a part of me that I've learned to recognize and take care of. Usage segmentation focuses on how consumers use a product or on their purchases, historically speaking. Marketers can create clusters of heavy users, light users, or any other category of users. By dividing the market into terms of usage, companies can target a specific cluster, creating a unique market approach. The message to lighter users of products will certainly be different than heavy users, and part of that will be just the characteristics of those groups, if you will. Segmentation in a B2B market can be based on industry, size of the business, geographic location, product usage, a customer, and what they value. Because most businesses have records of their business customers, segmentation is often easier than the consumer base, at least in identifying customers. Now, there's the NAICS code, which theoretically divides up the business world into different segments already and are often utilized. Segmentation is based on size often and is necessary when a firm wants to focus on another organization that maybe is smaller, medium, or large, if you will. Industries often locate together, such as computers in Silicon Valley in California, and how firms use products can be a method of segmentation as well. Now, reports on segment business based on product usage can be acquired. This ad targets Edgewater businesses, or rather larger businesses, for conventions and visitors conferences, if you will. The hospitality industry is a big industry, and we segment based on a number of criteria that we have discussed. Product positioning is really the perception in the consumer's mind in terms of what it has to offer to the consumer and how it compares to its competitors. It's important to recognize the two major points. In consumers' minds and relative to the competitors, if you will, positioning is created by focusing on a particular quality, price, distribution, image, and marketing communication process. Companies need to carefully consider where they are positioning themselves in the market and how they can reinforce the image or move consumers to the desired image, if you will. Effective positioning can be accomplished in several different ways. Positioning by product attributes involves promoting a unique attribute that is superior or different from the competitors. Using competitors to establish a position can also be accomplished by contrasting the company's brand against the competing brand. Use or application involves creating a memorable set of uses for a product or application that allow it to stand out. Price quality positioning can also occur in two ways: by emphasizing value and by emphasizing high quality, with little mention of the higher price perhaps that would be paid. The product users that utilize Apple computers have this demographic associated with them, if you will. Not more often, not educators use Apple computers, and they focus on the quality that's presented. Now, positioning can be based on the product or class of the elements that you are examining, such as beverages, breakfast foods, or sports cars. The last approach is cultural symbolism, which strives to connect the brand to some type of cultural symbol that is recognized and known by the consumer. So here we see an ad by Sony seeking to position its product based on an attribute, the brightness of the projector. And the other advertisement we see is an association with the classic American cultural symbol of the cowboy. Now, product positioning is never fixed because consumers and societies change. The same holds true for business products. In the international arena, product positioning is very challenging, but it's important. The position that is used in one country, however, may not be appropriate for another. Product positioning is a critical component of the image and the brand management because it's how consumers and or businesses view a brand compared to competing brands. An effective IMC communication plan and process requires quality as far as the communication objectives are concerned. These objectives tie to the organizational context, target market, and positioning approach to select really what is appropriate as far as the budget is concerned. Communication objectives also guide account executives and advertising creatives in designing the actual advertising campaign. Now, a list of common communication objectives are present here. In most IMC campaigns, emphasis will be placed on one of these objectives, but many accomplish other objectives in the process as well. There are some logical combinations, such as developing brand awareness and building customer traffic. Increasing market share would fit with increasing sales and encouraging repeat purchase actions. The key is to match the objectives to the medium and the message. The final two steps in the IMC planning process is establishing the communication budget and selecting the IMC components. Both decisions are usually made simultaneously. The marketing communication budget is based on the communication objectives and the marketing objectives. Budgets and a variety of considerations are taken when this whole process is initiated, whether it's a B2B market or a B2C market, business to business or business to consumer. It's unrealistic to expect a direct relationship between budget and sales. For example, increasing advertising budget by 25% will not necessarily increase sales by 25%. I was in a meeting the other day where they were talking about one of our hotels, the Lodge Spa. They said, the internet is really starting to play a huge role in our customer base and their behavior. I really think we should increase the budget there by $1,000. So essentially, we had a budget of $114,000 relative to last year's budget, which was closer to essentially $102,000. They increased it by $1,000 a month, just because they thought there was a focus on it. And the assumption was that we would get increased sales. That's not necessarily the case. How we utilize that $114,000 will determine whether or not we can provide an adequate ROI for that investment. We're currently in the process of signing a new deal with a new agency called Blue Magnet Interactive, if you will. We're paying them $75,000 to help us in our marketing efforts and managing them accordingly. Now, a number of factors influence the relationship between promotions and sales. The goal of promotions may be to increase brand awareness or really build a brand image. If so, they'll be less impactful as far as sales are concerned with some of the other objectives. Threshold effects are presented at the point where the advertising or communication begins to affect consumer responses in a positive direction. Carryover effects refers to an ad message being remembered or carried over to the time when the product is needed and the consumer is thinking about the purchase. Wear out effects happen when an ad or a message becomes old and stale and the consumer no longer pays attention to it. Decay effects occur when a company quits advertising and the brand begins to fade in people's memories. Sales can also be impacted just by random events, such as a major snowstorm that has recently hit the East Coast. Now, the straight line is an unrealistic assumption about the relation between expenditures and sales. The bottom curve is more indicative of what happens. Advertising dollars are spent, and for a while nothing happens. Then consumers begin to pay attention and start purchasing the product. The threshold effect takes place. As more advertising dollars are spent, to some extent, diminishing returns occur. The law of diminishing returns, it's economics 101, which really takes effect over time, and you have to identify that. With each additional dollar in advertising, the impact is less and less, and this is a concave drawn downward, responsive to the curve, if you will. This ad by Yamaha relies on the carryover effect of advertising. Boats are not purchased every day, so the hope of Yamaha is that when a consumer starts thinking about boats, he or she will remember Yamaha, the brand, and this particular ad. The curve illustrates the decay effect. During the advertising campaign, sales often continue to climb. Then the campaign ends and consumers begin to forget about the brand and it starts to decay. Companies may have a number of ways of determining the communication budget, if you will. Setting budgets for larger companies with multiple brands and products is often more challenging than with a company that may sell only one brand of a few products. The percentage of sales sets the communication budget as a certain percentage of this year's sales or next year's sales forecast. It's a simple to use tool that results in figures that are sensible, if you will. The problem is that it works in the opposite direction of what may be intended, if you will. When sales increase, so does the budget. When sales decline, the budget is reduced as well. It should be just the reverse. When times are bad, you really need to start advertising. When times are good, you might want to reconsider your advertising efforts. It also does not allow for special needs that may arise. The meet the competition sets a budget approximate so that it's equal to its competitors. This approach is used in highly competitive markets where you have to spend what the competitor does just to keep in front of your consumers, if you will. Spending the same as the competitors does not guarantee success. In terms of total market expenditure, approximately 41.1% is spent on some form of advertising. Consumer promotions account for 27.9%, and trade promotions account for 27.5%. These percentages will vary from industry to industry. It will also be different from product and service, and the consumer companies, and also B2B companies. What can we afford approach sets the communication budget after all of the objectives are set and the budgets are set, and you look at what income is available to spend for that. Normally with this approach, management does not see the importance of communication. Objectives and tasks are budget based on what it will cost to accomplish communication and the marketing objectives that has been established. Most marketers see this as the best method of budgeting. It's now being used by about half of all firms, if you will. Payout planning involves setting a budget based on a ratio to the sales or market share. This method usually results in more money being spent early in the process and then reducing the budget after the brand is established. Quantitative models use historical data to determine the relationship between sales and marketing and sets the budget accordingly. This is what we use more often is quantitative models to look at what did we spend this year, what's the market doing this year, and how can we align accordingly. The last decision in conjunction with the budget is the selection of the IMC components. Traditional advertising cannot be ignored in terms of newer, non-traditional methods. Companies really have to think about how much is needed for trade promotions and consumer promotions. Then there's the actual spending on the media. Some companies will also have to consider B2B spending, and it may not be easy to track the decision on which the investments are made and how effective they are. In terms of total market expenditure, approximately 41.1% is spent on some form of advertising, and we've looked at this as well. Before, consumer promotions account for 27.9%, trade promotions account for 27.5%. Again, these will vary from industry to industry. When looking at an alternative media spend, the largest category is for online and mobile, about 40%. A second largest expenditure is for branded entertainment, about 30%. In the B2B world, telephone marketing is first with 32%, direct mail is at 15.8%, and internet marketing is third with 14.5%. That's changing more recently, if you will. So successful global integrated marketing communication requires paying attention to a number of factors. The company must understand the international market and the cultures where it will be selling its product. The the markets need to be tailored to each culture, if you will, and must carefully communicate the values of that culture. The idea is to think globally but act locally. Seeking local partnerships can be very advantageous, especially in developing communication segmentation strategies and conducting a market communication analysis. With this information, solid communication objectives can be established